annual budget for February the 22nd. All rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. For anybody that's on the call, because the chief says some of the fire departments are, just so you know, this is a public meeting, but we'll hold questions until we get to the end of the meeting. The purpose of this is a workshop to kind of go through the budget. With that, chief, we're all here.
Okay, Bob, if you mute yourself, please. Oh, you gotta mute that because I don't know. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
You can't hear me.
Jeff is muted. Jeff, can you unmute yourself and tell us if you can hear Chief?
I no longer can.
Chief,
Okay, how about now?
no, see the microphone up on your little picture at the top?
I understand.
Yes.
The mic is there.
Yes.
Oh.
He's trying to use this
Sorry,
mic.
go ahead and mute that one and I'll use mine.
Well, where is the microphone that's hooked up to this?
Yeah, I would mute the computer named Robert DePalma, and then I would unmute Chief Mason's.
And it's still going to record everything that we need, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why isn't it? Oh, it's not a touch screen.
No.
How about now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Perfect.
Okay. I'm going to share a screen and this is our budget. That echo's going to bug me.
You got a singing for Jeff, can you hear the echo?
No echo on my end.
All right. We'll just try it for now. So can everybody see the budget?
No, it's not up on my screen yet.
Now?
There it goes. Yep, it's there.
Okay, if I may, this is the proposed budget. The first column where it says 21, 22, that's what we worked up last year when Bob and Jim and I did a 5-year budget. The gray column is what we've spent in 2020, 2021. And the green column is what the proposed budget is.
I went ahead and just muted this.
Okay, that's fine. So the current tax collection, by the way, this is where it says year-to-date balance is from February 2nd. That was the latest revenue and expense report I had.
It's not the full year.
It's not the full year, it's basically 10 months. As you see, we haven't, and I think Teresa has fixed it since then, is it didn't show any taxes have been brought in yet, but we figured that out and we corrected that. But if you look on the 21, 22, the yellow, where the yellow is, I was expecting $836,000 this year for taxes. As it ends up, we were only getting 802,000. So that did have a big impact. The next line is what was on the budget that Patty gave me.
Did we collect the whole 3.8?
3.5, or was it 3 point? I mean, for last year,
Yeah.
Last year was 3.8.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or was it 3.9?
No, last year we went down to it was 3.8, so 8.2
Yeah.
something.
Okay.
Okay.
But we did collect it, we've just been sitting in an account, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Public funds.
Okay.
So 802,000 for the 21, 22 year, 48,000 is what was on the DNR taxes from last year. Really don't know what that is going to be. We have not received any of that taxes yet. Stabilization tax is basically the same every year. We've only received $1,185 of that so far this year.
Question,
not sure, do we know for sure that the stabilization tax is the same every year? Because it wasn't for the last 2 years. And I don't know how that has been calculated.
Yeah, so I think what we decided, we just put the same number in for all those 5 years. So those things obviously have a big impact, whatever they come in as. So those are just best guesses at this time. Camp Tamarack was 25 grand. That's pretty standard. Miscellaneous, we had $6,946. I honestly don't know where that came from. I think it might have been some of the insurance payment we had for the engine repair. I'm not positive. Yeah. Next one down is we have the 3 Medicaid, Medicare, Blue Cross, Blue Shield, and ambulance. We've since combined them into the ambulance column now because we don't need to know who it comes from. But I can't see it on mine because the other screen is there. But so far, but if you project that out, if we divide it by 10 and multiply it by 12, it comes out to 187 for the year. So I'm expecting somewhere around 180 grand, 190 grand for the year, which is pretty good. I projected 200 grand, but COVID, obviously made a lot of problems. And then the rest are pretty much standard, 7,200 for rental income. Fire inspections, we got $4,530 so far. I projected 5 grand for that. Festival and other income, if Renaissance Festival goes this year, we get 22,900 for that. And then Rotten Manor, we charge $9,220 this year. So it runs out to about there. Yeah. General reimbursement, I do not know what that was for, unless it was for the insurance. Patty, was that?
I don't, it could have been.
Insurance, what I mean, reimbursement from the general insurance we pay every year.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be.
Okay. Grants.
That's probably the money that comes back when the
Work comp.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
done and you got to go through
That's
it.
what I'm saying. Yeah. And then grants, obviously, we did very well that last year, and that's not even all of it. We got another, I think, $23,000 coming from Safer. So we had 366,000 plus another 23. So,
Almost 400 grand.
yeah. So, but next year we're not expecting to get any of that, any more money for that. We may, but we don't have anything in the. We've submitted some grants, but we haven't received any notice that we wanted or anything like that.
But they're not grants of the same kind of magnitude.
Oh no, that would be like.
Training grants and stuff like that.
Or maybe some excavation gear, or
Yeah.
maybe ORV for the park. Yeah. So I think it's nice to note that we've operated since April on just our reserves and the money that's come in this year, because the taxes never got moved over. So I think that's a pretty good indication that we're doing pretty well. So for next year, I show $1,140,455 for the budget. And if you keep scrolling down or going down, you'll see a lot of these are the same, but I did change, probably 50% of them. Audit and legal, that's been the same price for years. We just leave it at $8,900 usually, or $8,750 is what we usually leave it at. Audit, I think, was a little bit more expensive this year. Repairs and maintenance, buildings and grounds. We spent $12,401 and we always allocate $10,000. That includes the repairs for the lightning strike. So, and we have not been reimbursed for that yet. We got reimbursed for engine 1 repair, which was like $4,600, $4,500. But the rest of the stuff we haven't got reimbursed for. Payroll for that, we don't ever put in for any payroll for that I know of, but maybe we have in the past, but I think there's no need for that. The rental house is,
That's probably the place where.
yeah. Yeah. So repairs and maintenance of the rental house, we spent $1,520 last year. We got $4 grand in this year. We're kind of thinking of either fixing the cabinets or replacing the cabinets here. We're told that, the bottoms are all rotted out and stuff. So we don't know what we're going to do. We haven't been able to get in there. We're just told that they're in bad shape.
Let me just ask you this. This has been, there's 2 issues here. I'll ask you about. One, every rental house. I'm aware of the situation now, but it's come up and back before that the house ends up costing us, I think as much or more in repairs and stuff than we ever get out of it. Would we be better off just getting rid of the house?
I think we can discuss that, but if we take that house, do anything with that house, we can't build anything there because the lot's too small.
It's all one.
Yeah, and then it shares the septic with the station. So it's either fix it up or destroy it and never put anything else on there. So,
Okay, and I'm just asking.
yeah, so we,
We've done it, we end up putting money into it all the
Yeah.
time and it doesn't,
Yeah.
there's not really much of a house.
no, but I mean, it's helping one family out right now. They don't, yeah, so,
I'm not saying that's being weak.
right, but that it has, we have discussed that many times, whether we just take it down, use it as a training house, whatever, but we have discussed it. There's no good answer for it right now.
There is a possibility of making a case to split that and sell it off as a historic home because of its age. But the biggest issue I see is I think the well and the septic are running off the fire station.
I don't think the well is, a septic is.
Okay, so I'm guessing if we did that, I don't know how you'd be able to split it. Because of that.
And it's either a break-even expense now, or if we fix it up, it's a big expense. If we tear it down, it's, just nothing then. So
Okay.
I agree. It's not something that's high on my agenda to take care of, but we probably make a little bit of money, not much off of that, a couple, $3
We
grand.
still pay some taxes on it too, based on this rental, over $600 a year that you can bill.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. If they don't tax it at the SED like you would your house,
Mhm.
they do it the way a rental piece of property is. I can't remember the exact number, but it's in the $400 to $600 range that you're paying for taxes.
How long is the lease?
Well, there's really no, I'm not aware of any time on that lease.
I have to get with
I don't think so.
Therese to see if
Just
there is
lease
one.
with some people, and then when they kind of gotten worse, we lowered the rent on it, and that's kind of where it's been staying, but every time it breaks, it kind of takes it and
Right.
puts it right back into it. Okay, I'm just asking.
Yeah, we're
And the
kind of
other-
the same.
The other question I had was, I know you've got about 187 medical runs this year, but I went through the runs from the reports, the 11 months, and then just estimated 13th to 12th month. And if you use the $424 that we know is the average we actually collect, it works out to about 169,000 a year.
Well, you did 11 months. It's actually only 10 months of data. February and March.
I took the runs from the reports you gave me that said how many runs you had.
Yeah.
And then I added an estimate.
But February's was not an accurate month. Remember, I said that at the meeting that it's missing a whole bunch of runs. Something's wrong with the Clemens system.
I didn't do this. For I did
Oh.
12 months for last year. The number of runs, we know the average is 424. The reason I say that is we've been through this before when we looked at how much were we going to get after we stopped doing the village. And there's that latency number that keeps on coming in, because some of them are 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. The real number, and this is more important for looking at, does this work going forward, is how many runs do we have going into the funnel when we know what the average revenue per run is $424.
Well, that's just an average for a piece of time. This
Well,
number,
every time I've ever looked at
This time-
comes up.
these are actual checks. This number is money that we received.
No, I understand. It's money you receive, but it has that latency collection that comes in there, and that's what the difference is.
Yeah,
The 424, before they raised it $100 on medical runs, it was 3 and 4. Okay, is 424 back a year and a half when I looked at Knoxville's, yours was like 425. This was a buck or two. So the reason I'm saying that is I don't think we actually do $200 on runs like a year. If the number is what do we put into the funnel for our average billing, and that's what actually comes out. The rest of it's latency. It eventually trickles down every year.
but if you just count runs times, I know, but by a ambulance, does that count the cost recovers we put in?
Do the cost recoveries get billed through the ambulance company?
Mhm.
It's in there. Because it was out of the ambulance company that gave us. I didn't make the number up, the ambulance company.
I mean, you and I discuss this every year, Bob. It seems like we always collect more than the 424.
And I think you do because of the latency, but what's happening, if you look back what we were, and what we thought we were gonna collect when we dropped the village. It didn't drop down as fast because of that latency.
But we're 3 years out now, Bob.
I'm just guessing there's still some coming in.
Well, I'm sure there is, but how long can we carry that out? I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
we all know that this is just the best guess anyway, so
Okay.
we'll have to see. Like now the numbers are back up again, so
Mhm. Okay.
I forget where it's at. I think it was rental house maintenance.
Yeah.
And then the next one, repairs and maintenance, 1099s, the $2,500 that we had in there was for lawn cutting. I don't know what we spent $400 on for 1099, but because the budget is so low, I took that out again. Computers and internet, we usually have 10 grand. We've only spent $6,700 or $6,400 this year. So I dropped it to 8. Telephone, you see a big change there. It was 10,345. Part of that is the paying for the changeover. And Jeff Burdess coordinated, and we got us down to $330 a month for phone bills, where they were wanting to charge for Station 1, I think it was $1,200 a month at one time, and we refused to pay it. So kudos to Jeff on that.
Good job.
Utilities, I raised it to 12 grand because I'm sure we'll be up around 12 grand this year for utilities.
When you get done checking up the natural gas prices, which have been fantastically low for us, you're probably right.
Yeah,
And will that potentially change once they move buildings?
hopefully, hopefully it'll drop.
The utilities on this one change.
No.
The Utilities on that one.
Should change greatly, right?
Should be lower and
Yeah.
should be, they'll be
Yeah.
picked up by the fire department.
Yeah. Next line is office supplies. I dropped it to 3 grand. Payroll services, I stayed about the same. And the reason, okay, that's not the one I'm thinking. Contractual services, I left it the same, 34,000. Bank fees the same. Legal and technical, I left it at 500 because we spent $9,400 this year, but I'm assuming that was Will's bill for the letter, so it's the only thing I can think of.
And that probably was.
Dues and subscriptions, I left at $4,200 because that's where the Mapus Association comes out of, and that's usually $3,500. They haven't billed it for us yet. Legal notices, I don't think we've spent anything on that in years, but $100 is nothing.
Yeah, I don't even know why you typically have legal notices.
We always left $100 in there.
It's probably one of those holding categories that at the end of the year ends up being zero.
General insurance, I left at 75 grand. We've had a couple of workman comps claims. One guy cut his arm, he had a couple stitches, and another one fell, but left it there. Miscellaneous, put that to 0 because I needed money. Gifts and awards, we usually have $1,250. I put 500, but since I bought a CNC, a router, that will probably be 0. So if we need any plaques, I'll make them.
We're gonna have the GTFD plaque service, right?
Yeah, there you go.
You could, you know, the plaque that I just bought for Ben, that we signed the letter on, it's like, I think that was $48.
Yeah, we just had some made. One was, I think, 75, another was 110. And just a little history. I made a big, huge picture frame with all for the general when he was retiring. The stinking brass plate cost more than to build that whole thing to get it engraved.
You're very good at this stuff. That's great.
Okay, now we're down to payroll. This reflects a 3% increase, just like you guys had. But the left column there was a 2% increase. The column G,
The green one?
no, green is the 3%. Column G, which is 2 over, was a 2% pay raise. So that just is,
Okay.
and if you go down to non-pension pay supplement and the social security.
By the way, can I ask, is there a reason we have to leave these things in there?
Actually, I think on the new one it's missing. The blue ones were the ones that are going to take out,
Oh, okay.
but
But they're still retired. You need to, I think, leave them in there because both of them are retired. And right now we're paying their,
Oh, but we don't have any, you can at least take 2.
OPEB we do.
But you can, can't you at least take them with the volunteer and time?
Would their OPEB cost be on another line item?
No,
It is.
cost is covered when, in fact, when it's picked up by the next guy that replaces them.
Well,
So-
no, but what I'm saying is, okay, Marilyn and Steve are retired. They still have their HSA paying for, right now it's, paid for
Well,
the term MERS.
I think Bob's saying we don't need that line item there
Yes, we don't need the.
because there's never any money in that line item.
McGee volunteer, that one doesn't need to be there. The one that says Tommy Nicholson's doesn't need to be there. If firefighter no benefits doesn't need to be
The
there.
blue ones are the ones I was going to take out, but I was going to talk with Patty first.
I don't know what fire assistant administrative part-time are.
That was for Sandy, but I pay her out of regular payroll.
I don't
You
have
can take
that.
all of those out except if you want retired chief.
They're not on your sheet, Patty. We took
I don't
them.
have them on my sheet.
Yeah.
They're on-
So just assume all those blue lines are missing. The reason I didn't do it beforehand is I have columns on the right-hand side I didn't want to mess with.
Okay. I understand.
So this reflects the 421,278 is 4 people on. Okay. Now I know we've talked about in the past going to 3 people, but I want to show you what it is with 4 people on.
Okay, fair enough.
So your volunteer payroll was at 80 grand. And the shift pay was 250, but that was with 3 people on. We kicked up the volunteer pay because we figured more people would be coming back. And you see where in the gray column, it says 112,943.
Yeah.
Well, that is because we had the has pay and we had the overtime pay and the CARES Act money came out of
All
that.
that stuff that you do.
So that's 82,000. So if you do the math, it comes down to like 30 grand for volunteer pay.
So you're swagging it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's probably good. Okay.
The shift pay, if you go to the right side, you'll see all the pay comes out to 390,000. So I put 400 grand. And then that 34,425, I forget exactly what that one was, but this times the 0.765, which is, that's the Medicare and Social Security tax computation there. That's just, I did a math,
What number are you on?
below 450,000.
So on yours it's 988,
Yes,
so it doesn't have a label. That label.
And what's this 34,425?
yes, but that's already included in another line. So
What is that?
that's Social Security tax and Medicare.
What line is that included?
You got
Where
it.
we
Bottom.
are, we're at-
Up above where it says 57,000.
Social Security tax.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're just saying that of that 57,000,
Yeah.
34,000 of it is from shift and volunteer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it's in the 57?
Yeah, well, you see, the 57 is the full-time Social Security and Medicare, and the 34,425 is the volunteers. So
So there are two
This is the
separate
plus.
lines.
the line 88 isn't used anywhere. It was just a computation for me to know what to put up above. So if you look on line 81, it says R79 plus I88. So that's where it's adding the 2 columns together.
Okay. All right.
And the non-pension base level then is the HRA, right?
Yes,
Does that have all of your people in it now?
yes. $69,100.06. Yeah. And that's everybody. Keep going down. Cost recovery. We usually had 18.9 in there, but this year we've made money on it because we were putting, doing the receipting. We just got a check for $2,000 from Star because they use the credit cards to pay themselves. And then if there's leftover, they send us a check. So I put it at $5 grand. Really, I don't know what it will be. That's basically an expense, but we were receipting when Star would give us an excess check, we would put it in there. That's why it went negative. And when I say negative, that is a good thing because it's an expense line. So we talked with Ken, Teresa, and I were like, we shouldn't be putting money into an expense line. So we're going to just put it in under ambulance. Any money we collect for that. Equipment purchase, the only reason there's 529 in there is because of my mistake. I thought I had money in that line, but we're done. So I just left it at 0. Operating supplies, I left at 25 grand. We've spent 17,000 this year. A lot of that money went towards buying stuff for engine 4. I think we've spent like the fittings and the axe and the strainers. Yeah. Right, so I think I've spent between 5 and 6 grand already on that. We're not done, but we're getting close to having everything we need for that truck and the other trucks. This year was an emphasis on, and you'll see later on, getting the trucks up to snuff. That's why we spent so much money. So we did PMs on, which we get down. But medical supplies, we've only spent $4,700 this year. Kind of surprised about that. Usually we go over budget. We used to have it at 10, then I made it 12, and then I made it 13 because we kept spending more. But so we finally, I guess, caught up to where we needed to be. And Stacy, Captain Williams, and well, all the full timers have been ordering the supplies for that. So we took some of the excess stuff off of the trucks that we didn't think we needed. We still meet the minimum requirement for the state, but when you find like we got, let's say 4 sets of ET tubes on a truck that expire without being used, we don't need that. So we got rid of a lot of the excess stuff that we had on it. Uniforms, 12 grand. Usually we'll probably spend about that. 17 grand on the is what we're programmed for gas and oil. We spent 8,400, 8,500. So I dropped it to 12 grand. We have gas and diesel at both stations now. We ordered another tank for station 1. And
we have storage tanks for both gas and diesel
at both stations. Diesel, and then we got another tank for gasoline because Alpha 7 is gasoline.
Okay. And how do we get that?
From Hamilton.
Really?
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, you think about, yeah, and it's a lot cheaper than going anywhere else. And then remember, we were paying $200 a month for that fleet card.
Yeah.
So, and then we were paying regular price for gas. So now that we got gas there, we're getting it at off-road rates. And
Just give it to you. Municipality, but he's giving it to you like a farmer would do.
he is, but it's road fuel
It's road fuel.
at off-road
Road
prices.
prices.
Yeah, so that's one of the great deals.
So we're off-roading.
So
Very good.
that's one of the things we implemented right away, and it's been very helpful.
Yeah, very good. Excellent.
Repairs and maintenance, I put 25 grand. We've spent 43,000. I'm sure we'll be over 50 by the time we're done for the year. And that's because one of the ladders took a lot to fix. And today, this was a terrible year for repairs.
You got hit for a lot.
Yeah, and that also includes the 4 grand for fixing engine 1. But we did get the money for repairing engine 1, and the insurance company did say, yeah, that was electric strike. There was some concern in it. We didn't call that in right away, but it was ghost electrics. Like one time the pump won't go in the pump, and then the ladder won't come down. And it's just, it's kind of like a British car. You got ghost electronics everywhere. So they figured out it was the computer, and they fixed all of that. So 25 grand. I'm hoping that will be enough for this year.
Actually, let me ask you this, if the ambulance fleet was newer, if we can find a way to replace those, that would probably help reduce your maintenance costs going forward, right? Because you're doing pretty well.
And we have 69,000 on Alpha 7. We got 90,000 on Alpha 1. We got 207,000 on Alpha 4, and I think it's 68,000 or 80,000 on Alpha 2. So
And they're all getting to that stage where stuff starts to break down between about 80 and 140.
and my car's at 110, and it's a British car too, apparently, because I got a lot of ghost problems with that. So yeah, we've talked about going to 3 vehicles, and if
Well,
there,
you could if the 2 frontline units were new.
Yeah. and we did look into it, and we haven't got a solid answer yet from the state. It says if you have an ambulance, you have to have a backup. Does that mean you have to have a backup for every truck? We don't think so, because Star doesn't have,
And
they don't have 100 ambulances sitting around. So
Does anybody we know have 100%?
no, well, we do, but
Other than-
and Knock Farm sure does and things like that. But I mean,
They do.
I think they do. I'm not positive. I think they have the same number of ambulances we do. And then Feichner's got 200% backup because he's not transporting, so he's.
They last longer
Yeah, they take them on all the calls, obviously, but, sorry, Dave. So, I think that'll be enough, and, we've discussed it going to 3 if we had 2 new ones, but obviously I don't want to buy 2 new ones right now. Professional development, we use that for like our ACLS PALS class, or if we have to send someone to fire school, things like that. We spent $1,030. I do owe Feichner for an ACLS PALS class. I don't know how much that is. He hasn't invoiced it yet. In the gray column. That's what, the gray column again is what we spent this year. So $5,000 for that, so that didn't change. Equipment purchase didn't change. Not planning on buying a vehicle. Health and disability, I left it at 10,250. I don't know why we haven't been charged more than that, Patty. Do you know why?
Well, that is your, insurances for like the life insurance policy.
Is that going to change? Is it? They usually build that in the beginning of the year, so.
No, we pay those monthly.
Oh, do you? Okay. Anyway, we left it at 10,250 because I don't know any better. And then pension and MERS, it raised to it's the calculated field. And that's from the right-hand side. If you look on the right-hand side of that page, you'll see where it has all the different numbers for payroll and whatnot. Well, I guess it's not right there. It's up a little higher. It's probably on the previous page.
Why do you have 0 on the OPEB?
Well, we've had that there for a while now, Bob. Because we don't know what it's going to be. It hasn't increased yet. Unless you know something I don't.
No,
We put $1,500 there last year, but we've never spent it.
and that's why you put 0.
Okay, so right down here.
Sure.
You guys might want to talk a little about
Yeah,
it.
where is it that we put the money in, that we cover the 3 retired employees on today?
Right, it's the healthcare savings plan, however, we're having it pay itself right now. It's
Okay.
coming out of the.
So it's coming out of the reserve that's at overfunded.
Yes. it
Okay,
is.
all right, I'm okay with it for now.
Okay, if it changes, I'd like to know. Then capital,
Well, just so you know, that's the one that, I think it's okay now.
Right.
But going forward, it's either 21 or 22 that they're gonna do the actuarial study
Right.
results. And when we get that, we're gonna find out what happens. Now, the assumption, I think, is that the women might be living longer and the men living even lesser. So, to whatever extent the mix of women and men would impact the OPEB funding calculation, but I don't know what it is. But either late this year or next year, we're gonna get that last hit, us too, from MERS on whatever that calculation is.
I've been putting $1,500 in there for 3 years and we've never touched it, so I changed it to 0. Just
Okay.
So, can I ask a question? Can you just clarify for me? Who are the retirees who are getting money and where is that line item in here?
Well, the retirees that are getting money today would be Steve McGee, Marilyn McGee, and Jerry Hobson. There were 3 full-time employees at the fire department that are retired, so they're getting their retirement health benefit. But the OPEB funding for the township and the fire department is I can't remember the exact number. I think it's 102 or 103%. No, maybe it's more than that.
I thought it was more than that.
Yeah, it was way more than that. We have them way over.
I think it was like 120%.
Yeah, so he can not put money in because the funds that are there should be generating enough to pay that benefit right now.
Okay, otherwise there would be a line item for those costs.
Well, there could be. When we get an actuarial study eventually that comes back that says, I'm hypothesizing here. The rate of return isn't generating enough money to cover the annual contributions to the retired employees. They'll come back and say, now your minimum annual commitment, Matt, or your mark is going to be X number of dollars, and then you have to start putting that in. but we're well overfunded on OPEB costs right now. So he can actually get away without putting anything in there. When we get the new numbers, it may change, but my guess is you're so flush on the, I think both of us, when I looked at it, you gave me the numbers, both the township and the fire department are so over excess funded right now, that unless the market takes a huge correction, we're probably good for several years in the future, so they don't have to put it. If it becomes underfunded, then the MERS people will start telling us, here's what your minimum annual contribution for the year is. Unless it's the end of the world, I'm guessing the initial shot will be pretty minimal. So I actually think he's okay. And the reason it's not in here is we funded it well enough. It seems to be generating enough money to pay its own benefit and meet the requirements.
Which I'm under the understanding is rare for townships to be 100%.
Less than the entity.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So we're real.
How much are those benefits? Just, is that public knowledge?
Everybody that is here 20 years or longer, fire or township, gets a $4,000 HRA funded for. Okay. The only one that gets more than that is if you're here 40 years or longer, and that was the recognized Steve had been here so long. His will be 8, but he retired early. And one of the things that's happening is pulling down some of that number because until he turns 65 in 2 years or 3 years.
3 years.
3 years, he actually gets the health benefit that everybody else gets. But that's because he retired early, but the funding is there covering it, so we're still okay.
He gets the $14,000 a year health benefit that working people get.
Yep.
Yes,
In addition to his HRA.
no.
Oh,
in-
at
in
the
lieu.
time that it changes over.
When he turns 65, it'll go to $8,000.
Okay. Okay,
Which, I'll be honest,
I mean,
we're kind of shooting in the dark when we started here. That is exceptionally generous
Yeah.
from any company, and those benefits, I'm just telling you, are not guaranteed. As I can tell you from AT&T, who's jacked mine around 3 different times. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, capital outlay, we usually plug in there 20 grand as a placeholder for any equipment purchases. I made it 0 this year only because the budget's very tight. This year we spent 30,000 on new jaws, and I forget what the $900 was for, but
Okay, and I see later on, a couple of years out, you put some forecast in. right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, and I guess I'm encouraged by what I see here, because if we can make it through the next couple of years and get some of those other projects going, like the township's property, the property tax impact on that to the fire department is pretty significant.
Right. And,
To the good.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, in conclusion, you see where I'm short 38 grand, but that's literally what the proposed budget was. It would have been flat 0. If you compare the proposed budget, I was expecting 836,000. We got 802, so it would have been 0 at the bottom.
You're looking at, if I understand this correctly, keeping the staffing the way it is,
Mhm.
meeting the obligations, giving a 3% raise like the township,
Mhm,
and slightly being negative
mhm.
for the next couple of years until it starts to turn positive.
Right. Now, if,
Actually, I think that's a pretty good, I'll be honest with you, you just made my day, because that's better than I thought we were going with.
and I'd like to add that per Ken, I think we had 513,000. 518?
I think that's something like that.
Let's go with 513. I think we're going to end up this year about $300,000 left over. So that will put us at, in addition,
Which will mean,
we're at $800,000.
to give you and the fire department credit, that means that in about 3 years, you took our cash surplus situation, which was down to about, and sinking, and down to about 250,000, and completely turned it around and got it funded. So if you have to borrow a little bit of that for a couple of years till the tax base hopefully can come up, I think that is a Herculean, outstanding effort on what you've done. And
Bob,
I know you've
I'm
improved-
thankful that you look at it that way. I was ready for an argument, but
Really? Jesus, after all this time.
I know, but-
Don't do that well, do you?
there's been other times where I didn't think we had an argument either, but we did. So
My goal is and has been from the beginning to figure out a plan that makes sure we still provide good service to our residents, and that we aren't doing everybody else's. And I did some poking around, just so you know, the numbers. Remember last time we did this study, we were doing like 46% of our runs weren't even in the township, right?
Mhm.
And I said, well, just underwriting everybody. But look what's happened since we started that. The Village of Holly has medical teams out here now. NACFA added another medical team in Rose that they didn't have. Brandon took the station that wasn't manned and staffed it up. And we know Springfield's getting ready to do it. There's more ambulances out in the north end of Oakland County now than there ever were. I really don't think we'd have got there if we hadn't made some stink about what we were doing. We were doing, I think it was 46% of our runs outside of the township. In the last year, the calendar year that I looked at, we're down to about 9%. Now, the guideline from the medical control boards about 5, but 9 is a huge improvement from 46%. The more we've studied the medical runs, it becomes apparent to me that what has to happen is Groveland has to be staffed and equipped to facilitate the service that Groveland needs and not worry about whether or not, and honor the principles of mutual aid, because the whole damn thing doesn't work for anybody if it isn't there, but not be staffed up to take care of everybody else's problems, because all of those, and we've learned this the hard way, we let previously try 4 or 5 different ways to do runs outside of the township, of which every one of them didn't work, and drained the cash reserves down to get back to what we need to do for our core competency instead of taking care of everybody else. There's a couple of things, we could do this offline later, that we could talk about, because there's still a number of runs, even though last year our runs were down to slightly more than what they were 20 years ago. There's still some runs in there that really I question whether we should be doing, but this budget is, I think, an excellent job
Thank
and
you.
an excellent effort, and I'm just speaking for me, I don't see a problem with dipping into some of that significant cash reserve that you built up, because in fairness to you and the fire department, you guys did a hell of a job getting the cash reserves back to what we normally have on hand, which is around 8 or 850. So that means there's a comfort level when something unexpected happens, that you don't have a knee-jerk reaction that makes everything change overnight. So I think you did a great job on improving morale. I think you did a great job on bringing up the cash reserves where they belong. And this is skinny tight, but skinny tight's better than running big in the hole.
In the last 3 years, we've had a surplus, even though, and I'm not sure we'll do it this year, next year coming forward, but this year was supposed to be a negative year, if you remember. So,
But that's the whole purpose. This exercise is to say, can we get the fire department to where it actually runs on its own money? And I don't have a problem personally with sometimes the township putting money in for major projects that are a one-time event. But you can't take money that isn't a guaranteed revenue stream like a millage and pay fixed expenses like salary. It just doesn't work. All you're doing is patching over and waiting for the dike to explode. One-time things, and we've done that historically numerous times for the fire department. So I think I'm surprised. I didn't expect this today.
I would also like,
Haven't talked to me for about 6 months on this. I thought, I bet today's gonna be ugly, but I think this is actually much better than I expected.
as you and I've talked in the past, there's a lot of sleepless nights going over this, but I'd like to also say that we got almost $240,000 for SAFER for payroll, and we didn't use that for the first 2 years because we didn't submit for it because we were going to
So,
emerge.
That's why you're gonna have a buffer.
Right, I'd like to put that money towards payroll, so that's why I went with keeping the 4 people on. And the general consensus is obviously that they'd rather keep 4 people on than, because I'd like to say it, we could easily, today you could change it to 3 people on, or 3.5 people, meaning just lose, let's say, the night shift or something like that, but there's so few EMTs and medics available anymore because everyone's hiring them out, that if we did that, it might be difficult to go back to adding another person. I'm not saying it's impossible. It could be difficult, because the village was hiring whoever was available just so they could do those transfers, and it just got too hard. So he stopped doing the transfers. I'm not sure that's the only reason, but part of it was getting people to work.
I don't know, because I don't see their I have to believe it wasn't making $40,000 a day. If you were making $365,000 running those transport, you'd have found a way.
Oh, then they can't get people to come in. And lots of times there was, because it also started at 4 a.m. Who wants to come in to be at work at 4 a.m? So, and they just, too many people just wouldn't show up and things. Gina?
I was just gonna say, in order to prepare for this, I looked back at when you did present your 5-year plan to us, you know, to keep Groveland Township. And I was just really today sitting here looking for whatever changes you had to tweak to keep that consistent. And I agree with Bob, knowing that we've got substantial amounts in the fire department bank account to cover any of this. I'm impressed. You've stepped up again.
The team, we work as,
All of you, yeah.
to save money, like, just for example, Jeff, getting that phone bill down to $330 a month. I'm glad the lightning strike hit now, otherwise we wouldn't have changed that, but. And then we do.
2 times though. Come on.
And then we do a lot of our own, Stacy's been working on those trucks in the bays. I mean, we got a quote for doing the bays at Station 2, which was grind them, both bays, and paint them. $27,000 to do that, where we did it for probably $2,000, the back bays. But
Well, part of that, and kudos for you for getting this implemented, but if you think back 2 years ago, I can tell you there were a number of comments of people, some of them, I don't even know if they still work there, saying, why don't you just raise the millage, who cares? That's not a good answer to take to the board.
there was one, I know one, but yeah.
Okay.
And he
if
didn't-
one, and I suspect some others that
And he
thought-
didn't live in the township, so it's easy for him. But
And there's my point. I think there were numbers. Even you told me when you started, everybody just thought we were flush with money. Why are we having a problem? And you could see what was going on for years was the reserves were dropping every year. So part of this is making sure everybody understands that we do need to be fiscally responsible to the residents and look at those things. And it sounds like that's taking place. That's what is desired.
Per
That
kid,
and not taking care of the whole north end of Oakland County on a Groveland taxpayer's back.
I didn't bring the paper with me, but per Ken's audit, the last 2 years, we were over budget. And
Oh, you mean revenues?
we overspent is what I'm saying. So it was in the, like, I think one year was like 20,000, the other year was like 50,000, but the 3 years ago, when we had the surplus, I think it was 180 grand,
Something like that.
that also paid those overages the previous 2 years of that too. So we've tightened the belt, and I don't think we're gonna get much more out of that belt. I mean, as far as cost savings, I think we've hit pretty much everything. And
But I think there's an obligation to the residents to be able to say, we've looked at everything we can in the fire department to tighten it up. And we have.
Well,
I think the proof is right here.
And they have shown what they tried to convey without, I never got the right words, but I am seeing in this action, the team and how you guys are like this, and you will do what you need to do together, and you want to be that way.
So
I appreciate it.
I think this is good. I know it's tight, but I think that's okay. And if it maintains the service level, I think that's a plus. There are a couple of issues that you and I can talk offline later that you tell me if they make sense or not, because I'll tell you what I look at, but I think we still need to look at. But I think this is an excellent one.
You always scare me when you say that.
We could do it in public, but I'd rather do it with you offline.
Oh, I'd rather do it.
And you tell me if I'm right or wrong, okay?
Jimmy, you talk about
I'm sorry, I think I heard it might be time for a new chief's car. Is that figured in?
No, it's not. We do have I think it's a 20-year replacement plan. Chief's car, I think, was due, it's either this year or last year. But I want to get an ambulance before we get another chief's car. Now, if we replace the chief's car, we need a pickup truck, not a car. I mean,
Like a crew cab or something.
yeah, that'd be perfect, but that's what we need. I almost couldn't get out of the driveway today because, and then when I pull out of the driveway, I have to account for the drifting to get going again. So, and we've had a lot of problems with that car. I mean, I've fixed them all, but it's 110,000. It's iffy in the morning whether it will start because
And that's not built to like police spec, that's just a.
No, it's just a V6. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was a cheap car, and it good for a few years, but we really could use a pickup truck and a new ambulance, but because of the budget, and I mean, I've got a team putting together to work on a new ambulance. What's the new ambulance gonna look like? That doesn't mean we're gonna buy it. We're just doing research. Captain Williams and Burdess, and I forget who else. They're gonna work on what do we want to spend. And if you get a new ambulance, you gotta spend $25,000 on a new cot and rail system. So it's,
Well, they don't have them, you can't move it from the other one.
no, because the old ones don't meet the new standard. If you get a new ambulance, that's not meet the new standard. And the new standard is a different rail, and, you know, so the truck could flip upside down and it won't fall. So it's easier to load, but I mean, they're not cheap. So it's, and then you gotta, hopefully they don't change it again before you buy your ambulance and make a new standard. Of course, there's
Sounds
a,
kind of like the elevator.
yeah, it is.
It always
And,
needed something that was ridiculously expensive.
Kevin, what's what degrades, if that's the right word, the fastest on ambulances?
Power plant? Well, boxes, I think, are almost good indefinitely.
yeah, we could replace the boxes. We've had a couple of remounts, but we had nothing but problems with them. I don't think it was the idea of remounting. It was out, who did the remounting. We had a lot of electrical issues where, you know, I can't, this is an exaggeration. You turn the wipers on and the horn goes off, but it's in the, you know, we had simple, it's like some of the stuff didn't work in the back. It's like, well, we can't turn the lights on. What?
Jim, I don't know why, but when you look at the wiring on an ambulance, every wire I've ever seen of them is gray. I have no idea how they,
Gray's a cheap wire. That's why.
I don't know how they facilitate what's working well. When we looked at that one that we worked on, every wire looked the same. I don't know how you can tell what they're working. And so when they get screwed up, they gotta be a nightmare to fix.
Yeah, we've also been fixing up this year. A lot of the things that have been broken for a while that we didn't bother fixing, you know, is like, you know, this light here, you know, those stinking light bulbs for those flashers in the back, they're like $50 a piece. You know, those have to be, you have to replace them. You can't run without them. Now we check them every day, but like Captain Williams just fixed the exhaust on tanker one, the hanger's broken, it's all dangling, but I mean, we do that. We just started bringing the trucks up there on Hill Road. There's a fleet service company up there. They do preventive maintenance, which I might add is a very nice and good job. And when the air filter costs $400, I mean, it gets expensive. Yeah, and they did a DOT inspection. Well, the air filters, you know, this long and that wide. I mean, it's so, but they did a really good, you know, did the DOT inspections for us and everything else. So they're a pretty good company. Mad Diesel's got, you know, they weren't able to work on the ladder because we were sending so many ambulances down there to get fixed, you know, and it's, I mean, we bought tires and everything. So this year was a very expensive year, more so than previous years. I mean, yet Dan Nicholson used to work on the trucks, but this was, you know, more than he could even work on. So, I mean, yeah, he may have changed the alternators on one of the trucks that went bad, but I mean, we probably spent, you know, $1,200 to get that repaired, but half of that is an alternator. So, I mean, we'd save $600, but so, I mean, there's always something that comes up. It just, this year was a terrible year for maintenance. Ma'am?
So I just have a couple of questions in this maybe. So first of all, since the shift in volunteer workers got the raise that they got, have you seen that the retention level of, you know, like do we have as much turnover? Are the people showing up for their shifts? Is it improved?
Yes, I'll just flat out say with a positive, yes. We have not. I think Lieutenant Nicholson was the last person we lost. I've eliminated 4 people because they haven't been to anything in years.
There's no point in keeping them on.
Yeah, but they're the ones I got rid of. 3 of the 4 were local residents, and I hate to get rid of them because what I told them in the letter, you can come back.
Yeah, it's not a reflection on them. It's
Yeah.
just, if they're
You don't
not
have
doing
time.
anything, we shouldn't have them on the road.
Now only costs $7 a year to insure them, but
Well,
still,
it also runs the risk of getting us over 50 head count, changing all that other reporting stuff.
But, and we hired some new people and we got several new medics. And honestly, the shifts have been, I'm not gonna say, it. Shifts have been filled, I'll just say it that way. I don't want to jinx myself with anything.
Well, that was the whole goal,
Right.
the whole
Yeah.
goal of raising the hourly
Yeah.
rate, and then,
As
when, you
as
know,
far as I know, we're the second highest in the area,
okay,
not for being highest, us next.
okay.
And the rest are pretty, now you can't compare Brandon because they're full-time people there and stuff like that. But I think, like Bob said, I think the morale is, kicked up. Part of the indication is training. More people show up for training. Now Lieutenant Decker does very good class, and when he's not available, Sergeant Millar and Sergeant Holtz do the trainings. And I mean, Stacy brought in some pig plucks and we dissected them and stuff like that. And yeah. And I mean, I can't say enough for those people, what they've been getting done. I mean, like that, remember that card we got from the insurance company says, here, we're going to pay you this way. And we're like, I have no idea what this, he looked that up. He's looking up the card swipes for the doors. I told him it's not a high priority. It's just when we get the new station, we'll probably implement it throughout. So I see some good things going on. And I mean, Stacy's like, we finished the floors in the back. Now it's like, what's the next project? It's like, I need a break. I got to do a budget. So
So noticing this 3% raise, all right, I think looking at the numbers, the very first column, which was column G, you said, is the column there with, that includes the 3% raise in that column G.
column G, no, it's a 2% raise.
Oh, 'cause that's what I was
Here, I'll
wondering.
show you. If you unhide it, you come over here to F, I'm sorry. F was, you see, for cabin wings was 61,952. And that's the number I multiplied times 3% to get the 63,000.
Okay, so the column, the green column is the 3%.
Correct.
Okay, so.
And then the next year's J, K, and L are 2% raises.
All right.
It
I think
will
this
be what
is-
it is. I don't know.
Yeah, this is good because it brings them up, it makes them more competitive, obviously. It is, how does this compare with, comparable sized fire stations and so on?
Actually, NOCFA just asked for the info and I requested a copy of it when he's completed. So he's basically putting together a package, see what the pay rates are and what, everybody pays. So I asked for a copy of that when he's done. I mean, he just asked for it, I think, last week or the week before.
So hopefully he's considering salaries,
That's what,
HRAs, the whole benefit package, the entire compensation.
that's
package.
what it was. Do you pay it for your full-time, your paid on call people, things like
Okay.
that? What's your callback rates, things like that.
Okay,
So it's very comprehensive about to differentiate between paid on call and full-time, what their benefits are and, basically callback rates, what's their hourly rate and things like that.
well, I do agree. I think that the team we have is doing a fantastic job. And
Thank you.
I'm pleased that they'll be getting this type of raise, and I'm pleased to support that as well.
Jim,
In our
thank you, by the way.
budget meeting of last week, we had talked about maybe skirted the matter of bringing together the IT of both the fire department and the township, which I am 1,000% behind. Where, this is to everybody, where is that money going to come from? Is it out of Kevin's budget, the township's budget, or part of each? So what prompted it is, you might remember, my vision is to see car readers everywhere. And that we have email addresses that all say the township. And I probably would even say, which I forgot to, I'd be really okay if you had a township phone too.
Well, Steve McGee had a phone. I just don't want to carry two phones personally. We just, through our our website, we figured out, I should say, Jeff Burdess figured out how to get emails for everybody. So like mine's kmason@grovelandfire.org. So we do have emails for every one of our guys now. And when we renegotiated the phones, that changed. So we're at instead of being at Frontier at Station 2 and Comcast at Station 1, we're at Comcast at both stations now. And the county took the T1 line out, so we used to have that. They disconnected all that because all our reporting is done online now. So I think we've upgraded our stuff and it's working pretty well right now, but I mean, if we go to the, whatever the township's using, the quote for the phone system was more than what we're paying now. So I think that would be an additional expense right now, but, and as far as IT, for now, I think we're good because we, cleaned it up. We got a web page that was hacked, by the way, by some anti-Muslim thing or something like that.
Really?
Yeah. And it was up for a day. We called and they took it down, but
Guys got a jihad.
yeah. So and it says, we'll bring the fire. So that was fixed, but now I've only used my email, the township email a few times because everybody still knows my old email, but he did, Jeff was able to get it for everybody. So at no cost, by the way, other than what we pay for the annual service for that system.
And then, so that's administered by Jeff or somebody in the fire department.
Yeah. And we're going to work on updating our website. Jeff will be first to admit he is not a web designer. It's working and does what we want right now, but we're thinking about, like you were thinking about updating the townships. Maybe we could piggyback with the township. We just don't really know who to talk to.
That's what
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And would this be a one-time infrastructure, like you talked about township money? If we were going to collaborate and make everything uniform, wouldn't it just be a one-time expense anyhow?
It could be.
Yeah. Well, there's an annual fee for the,
Maintenance,
yeah,
right.
for the website, but
So everybody parenthetically, after last week's meeting, many websites are based on the templates that you buy. There are, I was shocked, a number of municipal templates. So the website could be easier than we think.
Actually, the one that's in there though, I think was a website company. That
Mhm.
I mean, well, we didn't actually create it. They've done it, and all we've done is add some link buttons onto it.
And if I didn't say, I think I was talking to Gina, I think Bloomfield Township's website is phenomenal.
I will raise one thing, and that is, the website, however it looks on a laptop, is really kind of the secondary consideration, because most people are looking at things through their cell phones. And so it's really needs to be cell phone friendly, right?
Oh, that's
right.
what you think of the biggest, just where the
Yes,
changes
oh,
are.
Oh,
So you can pick it up,
absolutely.
it's a
Most
good
people
point.
are looking at things on their,
Then you get a condensed version of
smartphones.
it.
well, if you've noticed, tablets are getting smaller and phones are getting bigger, so.
yeah,
You know, my son even said that when people order stuff on the internet now, what they get on their cell phone is, and he gets a huge number of them on cell phones, and they don't get all the information that they actually go on a computer.
yeah, right. But
So I can see your
a
point.
good website developer or, someone between
Will
ours,
adjust
whatever,
it.
will know that, and, so.
Yeah, the only problem is you got to get them out of high school first.
Or Julie.
Yeah. We need a black hat in here to work.
Kevin, well done.
Yeah.
Joke with
Very
all
good.
the
You did an excellent job.
Yeah, very nice.
Should we open it up to anyone on board?
Yeah. And you go around.
Can you do that from yours, or do you want to do it from this one?
If I do know how, I don't know how.
I think if you do it from this one, it's probably better.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the primary one.
All right, let me see here. Let me mute.
Lena, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Hold on a second.
She's not.
Okay. Does Leanna would you like to say anything?
Nope. Thank you for having the meeting. Sounds good.
How about Jeff?
Oh, no, just great job, chief. We've made some really great changes and I'm happy to hear we'll be able to keep 4 people and it's been a really, morale's way up, and thanks to the board. Thank you.
Thanks for the job you guys are all doing. I'm glad we're all pointing the boat in the same direction.
Absolutely. It's really nice to hear. Hey, just a heads up, we can't hear anything if you guys are talking.
How about now?
Yeah, we can hear.
We just adjourned.
I should do that again.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know.
It was off of my,
Hi, guys. Sorry, we're unmuted now.
I made a motion to adjourn. Gina seconded it. No questions. Chief didn't have any questions, and we think we answered all the questions from anybody watching. Is there anyone else who wants to make a comment before we adjourn? If not, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, thank you.